I'm Jen with Phoenix Theatre Company, and I'm with Michelle. Michelle, can you introduce yourself, and we'll jump into you explaining a little bit about Dear Evan Hansen.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Michelle Chin. I'm the director and choreographer of Dear Evan Hansen. I'm also the summer camp director, the Festival of Newark's director, and the resident dramaturg for the Phoenix Theatre Company.
Lots of hats. So now you're the director of Dear Evan Hansen. Can you tell us a little bit about the show, about the storyline?
Yeah, I don't want to give too many things away for anyone that is unfamiliar with the piece, but it's essentially about a high school senior who there's some tragedy that occurs at his high school, and then there's a series of miscommunications that result in kind of a spiraling of lies that kind of catch Evan Hansen in this complicated web, and he sort of is complacent, and it results in a lot of different things that happen to him, both positive and negative, and how he handles that, and how the community around him handles that, and how social media plays into that as well.
Can you please describe the set a little bit and kind of the timeline that we're seeing?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, social media is I like to call it the ninth character within the show. And so our set really is functioning to allow video and projection to be at the forefront, to allow that character to really be palpable with our actors and with the audience. So it's fairly open. We have a series of LED screens that fly in and out, and we have scrim surfaces that kind of come in and out of the space to be able to allow projection to either isolate on those scrims or to kind of overlay to feel all encompassing for those characters. But it kind of moves very quickly. So everything is either something that can move in and out from the sky or on and off stage, and via wagons for our furniture units to kind of change space very quickly and keep the plot moving.
Thank you. It's going to be pretty cool. Please describe the main characters a little bit, Evan and I guess Zoe and maybe the parents.
Yeah, so Evan Hansen is the titular character. He is a very anxious 17-year-old. He feels very disconnected, but so strongly wants to be connected to the world around him. And social media is something that he can kind of see. There's a very popular song from the show called "Waving Through a Window," and there's a lyric that repeats of "tap tap tapping on the glass, waving through a window," and it's almost that like he's seeing all of these people and longing to connect in that way through devices and through just this tiny world that we see via social media and on the internet, but lacking the ability, because of social anxiety, because of just not having the confidence to speak to other people in person and even online. And so that's kind of those different barriers for him are sort of what results in a lot of the inciting incidents that move the plot forward. Connor Murphy is also a very important character in the show that actually you don't get to see a lot of this character, but he's kind of got his own troubles and challenges. And his younger sister, Zoe Murphy, is the secret crush of Evan Hansen, and also sort of feeling misunderstood. There's a lot of, I think, with every single character within the piece, they all really want to be right, but a lot of the times they're in the wrong. They also all want to connect as well in certain ways, but have different barriers that don't allow them to do so. Connor's or Evan's best friend, or his family friend, as he likes to remind him all the time, is Jared, who's also someone that I think is all talk and not a lot of action. And it functions a lot to help push the plot forward and sort of poking Evan and making him make some decisions that maybe he wouldn't have done on his own. And then Alana is our other young character in the show. She is college bound, very, very focused on academics. And it's interesting because I think the way that she's portrayed in the show can feel a little bit two-dimensional, but you kind of see glimpses. And I think the writing is so brilliant, and how it shows you kind of surface level who these characters are. And then it only gives you enough context for you to be able to fill in the blanks. And that makes them all the more relatable as characters. So we see Alana as this very driven, very academic, individual. And then later in the show, we kind of hear that there's some challenges that Alana is also encountering. And so it's interesting to see all of these five young people and how they handle different things. And their parents, they also are trying to handle having teenagers, but it's interesting that they each have their own barriers as well that are preventing them from seeing one another as they truly are.
That's really interesting to me. Like, how do you approach directing adults that portray the parents that seem just as lost as the kids are? How are you gonna handle?
It's interesting that you asked that. I just directed Spring Awakening, and that theme is very, very prevalent in that piece. And we talked a lot about, I think it functions a little differently in Dear Evan Hansen than it does in Spring Awakening. But I think what's really beautiful about the actors that we have in these roles is that I know several of them have such a personal connection to the piece and to being parents and what that means. And I think societally, things have shifted. The show is set, it's contemporary, but it's not set in the now. I think technology has changed so much in the last 10 years that there really would be no way to kind of set it current, like present day, and have it work in the same way. But that the way that these parents are trying to reach their children or giving up because they're like, why? I just don't know. I don't know how to connect with you, and I've done everything I think that I can. And so you see the character of Heidi, which is Evan's mom, who the father is out of the picture, and so she's trying her hardest to be the mom that is there for him and make sure that even though she's working so many jobs and trying to make ends meet as the single provider for this family, that she wants to show up for him, but also recognizing that there's such a barrier there that she doesn't know how to really engage with him and how to talk to him in the way that she would like. And I think he feels similarly, but that there's such, I like to say that relationship is kind of the heart of the show, because even though you, as an audience, you're recognizing that they might not be truly seeing eye to eye, the desire to make that connection and to speak as openly as possible is there, even if it isn't fully honest from the get-go. And then I think the Murphys, Cynthia and Larry, they both, it's interesting that they portray such a different look at parenting, and there's a level of privilege that is within this family just because of social class and things. And I think that they have provided with the things, everything that Zoe and Connor could need, everything that they could have ever asked for, they can have. And if there is a challenge there, it's like, well, we'll go send Connor off to get this support. But there's not as much desire to have that connection or conversation of, well, did that help? Did that work? And so it's like different approaches that neither of them are wrong. It's, and they're trying their hardest not to be lost, but then just don't really know how to, truly see eye to eye and find out what is going to be best for that young person.
What is the biggest challenge in balancing the show's humor with its heavier emotional moments?
I think that the way that it is written is so lovely because there is a lot of humor in it. And I think if there wasn't, it would be too much of an emotional gut punch. And I don't think that audiences would want to enjoy it in the same way. As I mentioned, the character of Alana and the character of Jared, I think that they are sources of a lot of the comedy in the show, particularly in the first act. But even Evan is so charming. It's interesting because if you just think about this character that is kind of going down this spiral of lies, it's very much an anti-hero that you're supposed to be rooting for. And it seems that you would immediately be like, well, why did he do all of these things? This is so wrong. And I know a lot of people make that argument, but I think there's something about Evan, and you recognize that he's just a kid, and that every decision that he makes, even if he's telling this lie and he shouldn't be, that it is just coming from a place of wanting to help others, and then getting stuck in, well, I said that one thing, and I guess now I have to keep going down this path. And it's just to prevent friction. It's to prevent arguments. Anytime that he has one of these big explosions of a lie is because there is conflict happening and he wants to resolve it. And So I think, yeah, it's interesting to see how he functions in that way, and that in that he has a lot of stammering, a lot of he's also one of those people that, unlike some where they keep all of their thoughts inside and they feel like they can't utter them, he kind of says anything and it just blurts out, and it is kind of so charming and almost funny that the comments that he says are like, he even to himself is like, why did I just say that? And I think that we all can identify, as everyone goes through that phase when they're teenagers, of like, they either have so much filter or no filter at all. And I think that that brings a lot of levity to the piece, and also allows you to really connect with and understand where Evan's mind is at. So that way you root for him, even though he might be doing some things that are a little questionable.
What specifically excites you about this show?
I have loved this show for a very, very long time. I'm absolutely delighted and honored to be doing the Arizona premiere of the piece, and just to be working on this material. Because, as I mentioned, I think the way that it is crafted is so beautiful. It's mind boggling to me that when Pasek and Paul, the composer and lyricist, and Stephen Levinson, the book writer, they were all like 24 when they started writing this piece. And I think that because they were young people themselves, they just had such a great understanding of how to accurately write adolescence. And I think especially now, it's interesting. It was very relevant when it first got produced 10 years ago on Broadway. But I think coming out of a global pandemic just a couple years ago, and we were just like the most disconnected I think the world has ever been. And I think I'm so excited that more people are going to get to experience this story. And I think it can be such a great conversation starter. I know so many people that have seen the show. And as I mentioned before, that these characters are so beautifully written, and that they feel so human and so real, but yet, and there's so much detail to them, but yet there's also certain details that are left out that allows them to feel even more universal, so that someone can see the show and say, I know Evan, I know who that kid is, or that was me, that is me. And I think that that is such a beautiful way to then start a conversation. Maybe it's too hard for especially a young person to admit that they're having anxiety or depression or loneliness. And by going and seeing a piece like this, they can say, well, I really understand Connor, and he's like me and he thinks like me. And that can open up a door to allow even more conversations to happen, whether that be leading down a path to get somebody help, or if it's just a great way to then help some of those lost parents or lost kids be able to see eye to eye and have art be the door that opens that avenue for them.
That was perfectly put. I was going to ask, like, what do you want audience to walk away? But it sounds like you want to be a vehicle for that conversation, to bridge that gap that the characters in the show can't quite bridge. So that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Thanks for that. One last question before we do like the fun flash questions. So if you had to describe the show in 3 words, what would they be?
You know what I was going to say, but it's not 3 words. You will be found. That is such the tagline. And I think it's so beautiful. If I'm allowed to say that those are the way that I'm describing the show, is that I think that statement is so, it means a lot of different things. And how it sort of culminates at the end of the first act is the song titled, You Will Be Found. And that has sort of become one of the taglines for the musical since its inception. And I think it's this reminder of that no one is actually alone, and that there's community out there. And even when we're kind of swimming out there and don't think that we can find anyone to help us out or to make us feel seen or noticed or heard, that those people are out there. But on the flip side, that it can also, you will be found, it's examined in both ways in the show. And I don't want to, again, give things away, but there's a reprise of that song that happens in the second act. And it's so interesting how we think of You Will Be Found as this anthem of no one is alone and let's stay connected, but how easily, again, in the advent of social media, how that can turn on someone.
Thank you. Let's do fun flash questions. Have some levity with the deep ones. All right. What's a small thing that instantly makes your day better?
A small thing that makes my day better, just every day.
Mhm.
Hmm. I think today is going to be a good day, and here's why. I have a matcha latte every morning. I like to do the ones that have mushroom in it, which is like helps with brain focus and things and immunity and everything. But that little something is just like a nice way to start my day off.
If you could have dinner with one character from your show, who would it be?
Oh, that's hard. I think I think I would really want to have dinner with Evan Hansen. I think that there's so much depth and curiosity there, especially I think it'd be different to have dinner with Evan Hansen before the play happens, like all of the different things he experiences and how that affects him versus the Evan that you see at the end of the musical. I think I'd like to have dinner with both of them. And I think I'd glean a lot of things getting to ask even the same questions of both of them. Mhm.
If you can transport any person to see your show, who would it be?
Ooh, well, can I transport a package deal? Is that okay?
Yeah.
I think I would love Benj Pasek and Justin Paul, the writers of this piece, to come in and see what we're doing here in Arizona. I think I just have such mad respect for them as creatives. And I think it's so cool for them that now their work is being produced all over the country, all over the world. And I hope that we're going to craft something special here in Arizona. And I think it'd be super cool if they were able to see it.
What is your favorite song in the show?
These are such hard questions. I know they're fun flash questions, but oh, I think I love the score so much, but mm, I think I want to say For Forever. That's also a piece that kind of comes back during the show, and I think that there's something so beautiful in the way that it's crafted, the way that the song builds, the way that it uses metaphor. Also, being a drummer, Alex Lackamore's orchestrations on this show are exquisite, and the way that drums are used, particularly in that song, I think it helps you understand and feel the build of emotion that Evan is feeling. And that song and Waving Through a Window have some like incredible drum fills that I feel like encapsulate so clearly what that emotion is, what that heartbeat. It's not a steady beat, it's a little bit fluttery. And I think that that is so, Evan doesn't really have that groundedness. And I think it's articulated so beautifully in the score.
What's one word your younger self would use to describe you today?
Hmm. One word. I think it would probably be perfectionist. I think that that is something that even my older self would describe to my younger self. And I think it is something that can be both positive and negative.
What is your comfort movie or TV show you watch when you need to decompress?
Mm. I I really enjoy Friends. Um, I watched all 10 seasons as a nugget, and I think it's one of those things that I also, there's a part of me that just loves New York. And I remember for the longest time, I was like, I'm going to move to New York and I'm going to live in an apartment just like them. And I was like, wait, that's not possible at all. um, but there's something about the comedy in it, the rapport amongst the characters, and yeah, there's just a lot of lightness. It's also fun to be like, oh, there's a Thanksgiving episode, there's a holiday episode, there's something that you can watch any time of year that will kind of be just right for the occasion.
What is the kindest thing a stranger has ever done for you?
Hmm. I think, oh, this is such a random thing. Actually, I actually was fortunate enough to see the closing performance of Dear Evan Hansen on Broadway, starring Sam Premack. of Arizona fame as Evan Hansen. It was an incredible experience. And I was actually in New York to see the show, and I went to get brunch before catching that closing matinee. And I realized that my Apple Pay was not working on my phone, and I had left my wallet at the apartment, which was like down the street. And so I was sitting next to someone who was at we were all sitting at like a little bar at this brunch place. And I was like, this is going to sound crazy. And we had just randomly were chatting. And I was like, I have no way to pay for this right now, but I will Venmo you. I know you don't know me, but please trust, if you can pay for my breakfast, then will send you money right away. And I explained where I was going and all of the things. And so she ended up paying for my breakfast and was like, don't worry about it. Go enjoy that show. And that person that starring on Broadway, that's so cool. And it was, such a random, sweet, kind gesture, and happens to tie back to Dear Evan Hansen.
How fun. That's a really cool story. Let's see. What is a dream show that you'd like to direct someday?
Honestly, this was on that list. So getting to do that is absolutely incredible. Trying to think, there's also been other things that I've gotten to do at the Phoenix Theatre Company that have been on my dream list. I think another piece that I would love to get to do is Peter and the Starcatcher. I love imagination, and I have such a soft spot in my heart for coming of age stories, and Dear Evan Hansen is one of those, and Peter and the Starcatcher also is. And I mentioned getting to do Spring Awakening recently. That was also one of those bucket list shows, also a coming of age story. So if I could just keep checking off coming of age stories as a director, that would be
really, that's your theme.
Yeah.
If you didn't have a career in theater, what would you be doing?
I had two separate, very deep interests as a nugget. I really was into food. I'm a baker, as you know. And so I, for the longest time, wanted to go to culinary school or learn how to be a pastry chef or do food artistry. That was something that really spoke to me. And then on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, I was also fascinated with working in a morgue and being able to help solve criminal mysteries and being a forensic anthropologist. So very, very different passions, but those were my two other choices. If I hadn't been in the arts, I was either going to go and be a baker or go and be a forensic anthropologist.
Very different. Okay. This is the last question. What do you want to be remembered for?
I think I want to be remembered for kindness. I think that is something just in general for humanity that sometimes we could all be reminded a little bit more of that. And those random gestures from strangers and or just the people that you work with, the people that you see, the people that are your friends, your family, making sure you're just reminding them of that love and being kind to anyone, regardless of who they are within your sphere.
Very cool. Thank you for your time. Do you have any last words for people watching besides come see the show?
I think, no. Yeah, I think, I hope that people will come and see this show, and I hope that they can have it be something meaningful as it was to me when I first got to experience it.
Awesome. Thank you.